This is a Balanced Brain podcast with your hosts, Melanie Nicholson and Sean Clift.
Hey, it's Melanie from the Balanced Brain podcast. I'm going to do a brain snap. I'm going to give Sean a call. He has created a garden at home, so we're going to talk about how to build a garden at home. I'm just going to give him a quick call now.
Hey, Melanie.
Hey, Sean, how you going?
Really good.
Good. I've just told the audience that I'm giving you a call about how you've built your own garden at home and how you can go about doing that for the listeners.
Well, look, great that you give me a call. It's quite a funny thing that happened a couple of months ago. That I think when my little girl was at preschool, they were hammering them about, gardening and how good it was to grow your own food and things like that. So one day, Rosanna came out to us on the back deck and said, "Mum, Dad, I really got to talk to you guys. I don't think we should be spending so much money at the supermarket. I think we should start growing our own food." Now, we've always had a little herb garden. We've always had some herbs growing and things like that. But we thought, okay, great, let's get into it. Let's do it. So we went through the process of getting a couple of raised garden beds and a couple of, sort of raised up garden, like pots that we can put around. And we started to get into it. So we had a summer crops, and which we got a little bit off it, not heaps, but it was a great start. So it's been really interesting.
Yeah, and what sort of things are you growing?
So at the moment, I had some turmeric growing last season, which has gone crazy. So it's almost at the stage where it can be harvested. So last year I got about maybe 2 kilos.
2 kilos of turmeric.
Yeah, I mean, it's $75 a kilo at the fruit and veg shop. So I'm hoping to sort of get maybe 5 or 6 kilos of turmeric this year. So the turmeric's looking really, really good. It's all flowered, so sort of the end of summer, sort of autumn period, the leaves will sort of brown off from that and they'll be ready to harvest. So I'm hoping to get a good harvest of turmeric. But we had some green beans growing, so we had a good couple of meals worth of green runner beans. We had heaps of tomatoes, so we were sort of getting, about a punnet of tomatoes a week.
Wow.
We had some cucumbers growing. We had plenty of good rocket lettuce and some, mixed lettuce leaves. So although we didn't have enough to kind of only have that for every meal, but we certainly supplemented with stuff that we bought at the supermarket.
That's fantastic. And, we've had food shortages a few times, whether, supply issues and that. So it must be a great feeling knowing that you've got veggies just in case if that happens again. Yeah. Look, one of the things that grew really well is that we've got amazing eggplants, actually. So the eggplants are still growing really, really well, even though the sort of summer season started to cool off a little bit now. We've still got, 4 or 5 good-sized eggplants on the tree and some more flowers for them to come. But we're just in a bit of a transitional period now. So I've just sort of taken out all of those summer things that we were growing, and I've just planted some things that'll do a bit better in the winter time. So I've just put in some sugar snap peas, I've put in some silver beet, some beetroots, a lot of spinach, and I'll put in some beans again as well. So, so at the moment it's all about light issues, that's one of the things that has been a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of a challenge in the winter time, is that, being in the inner city, it's hard to get a house that's sort of, got that big area with full sun. So you've got to sort of take that into consideration. So I've sort of moved some pots around that are in a bit more sunny areas, and some on my shed roof. I've put 2 pots on the shed roof. I'll take a video and put it on our Instagram so everyone can see. And how do you stop things?
I've also experimented with some mirrors, which I've read a little bit about. So I'm trying to get a little bit more sunlight into the sort of side area of our yard where we've got the garden growing. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
And how do you stop things from eating the fruit and veg? Like, you know, how you get possums and things like that. Like, that's what happens in a lot of...
Absolutely. Like, in Brisbane, there are more possums than people, and they absolutely love the herb garden. So, yeah, you've got to have raised garden beds. Raised garden beds or some sort of netting or some sort of covering that you can put over it. We've gone with raised garden beds. So we've got a couple of corrugated iron raised garden beds. So the possum simply can't climb up in there unless there's some overhanging branches and things like that. So we found a possum sort of chomping away at our spinach. So that's going to have to move because they really love spinach. But yeah, so we've gone with having raised garden beds, so everything's sort of lifted up off the ground, so it makes it hard for the possums to get in. As far as other pests go, I want to stay, fully organic, so I haven't used any pesticides or any fertiliser, just everything's sort of organic. So really, it's about getting in the garden every day, and if you sort of see, a caterpillar or a slug or, we get a lot of little grasshoppers and things like that, you just got to physically remove them. That's honestly the best way to do it.
And what do you have recommended about soil? Like, what type of soil have you been using? And how important is that?
Soil's key. And obviously, like my job is actually in gardening. So, but, I mainly look after sort of residential properties. This is the first real experiment that I've done with really trying to grow food, but soil's key. So, what you want to do is if you do a little bit of research about what certain types of plants complement each other, and so some plants take a lot of nitrogen out of the soil and some plants put a lot of nitrogen back in the soil. So what you want to do is you just want to be rotating the crop, if you know what I mean. So you want to start with really good soil. If you're buying a good organic mix from Bunnings or whatever hardware store you go to, get something that's got a high level of organic material. If you can do composting at home, composting is a great way to get that into the soil and build up those nutrients in there as well. Seaweed solution's really good. You can get some good organic organic mixes that you can sort of mix in with the soil, dynamic lifter and things like that. The soil is really critical.
And how good has it been? Like, Rosanna's been getting in there and helping with the garden. It's really good for kids to know where their food's growing and coming from, right? How important has that been?
Well, I think that's the most important thing, because when you're growing your own things, you may not be able to get enough to sort of sustain yourself. Like, if you had 2 acres of land that had a lot of good sunlight, then you might be able to sustain yourself. But if you've got an inner city property or even a unit with a balcony, you can grow some. And I think it's really important for kids to see that, because otherwise they're so disconnected from that process that when they go to the shops, they just think everything comes in a plastic container. Whereas now, my little girl enjoys coming down into the garden with me, so she's really keen to, experiment with the different things that we're growing. So it introduces her to new foods, because she's really keen to try it if she's grown it. So kids will, get actively involved in cooking and trying different things. If you're growing a little bit of eggplants and beans and that, they'll get really excited by eating those things. So then when you're trying to introduce new foods that you're buying from the shops, it just becomes easier that they know that's it's an organic process. It's not just something that comes in a plastic container.
And how would you, like, if people are listening and they want to start for the first time, what do you think is just a few basics to start with, or even vegetables that are easy to grow and start that process?
My advice would be to start a herb garden.
Yeah.
If you don't know where to start a herb garden.
Except coriander, which no one knows how to grow.
Yeah. So, look, the big thing with coriander is that everyone thinks that it's a tropical and summer kind of, plant. But actually, it thrives in the wintertime. So in Australia, it's a good time to put coriander in now. It'll grow really well over the wintertime. It actually sort of struggles in the summer. So it's a bit of a misconception, because I think it's always sort of, we always sort of think of it as Thai food and in Mexican food and all those sort of summery kind of things. But it actually doesn't like it being so hot. So it's awesome with coriander. But a herb garden is a great way to start. So even if you're living in the city, in a high-rise apartment, if you've got a balcony, you can get a herb garden growing. And it makes all the difference to your cooking. So you can get results straight away just by throwing in a bit of chives or some freshly cut parsley, or putting some, freshly picked basil into a tomato sauce, or on a pizza, or just mix through some pasta. A little bit of rosemary is easy to grow. If you get a herb garden going, that's the best way to get started. You can start with a little pot on your balcony.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice, Sean. I'd love to be. I've tried, but yes, and I've had the worst luck with tomatoes, which I'd love to grow because a lot of them. But yeah, I think it's I think people are thinking about that more, and particularly since the toilet paper crisis. Well, we can't sort of grow toilet paper, but at least we can grow some veg and some herbs at home, and I think that's really important.
Get a herb garden going, Mel.
Yeah,
let's check in, see how your herb garden's
I will.
growing.
I'll
get the Bunnings, get a couple of pots, put it out on the balcony.
I do have a garden, like we built one, but there's no actual herbs or vegetables in it. So I've actually even got the bed ready to go, but yeah, we haven't tried it. So
get some good organic soil. You can really make it decorative too. So it can be something that looks really pretty on your balcony. A good herb garden.
That sounds
makes all the difference to your cooking, I tell you.
Oh, that sounds like great advice, Sean. Thanks so much for telling us about how to grow a garden, and I think the listeners would really benefit from some of those tips.
Good to catch up.
All right, great. Thanks, Sean.